Welcome to Operation Outreach, a new program to highlight the services available to military veterans right here in Central Florida. I'm Fred Robinson, Chair of the Orange County Mayor's Veterans Advisory Council. Today, we'll learn about the Navy League of the United States and the work they are doing here in Central Florida. I'm joined by retired Navy Captain Tim Hill, the president of Central Florida Navy League. Thank you for joining me, Tim.
Thanks for having me, Fred. Always happy to talk about the Navy League.
All right. Tim, I have a question for you. How long were you in the Navy?
So I was almost 34 years in the Navy, Fred, counting my time at the Naval Academy.
And what was your MOS?
So I was a backseater, a naval flight officer in F-18s.
And what is the purpose of the Navy League in Central Florida?
So, Fred, the Navy League is a national, in fact, worldwide organization. It was started back in the early 1900s with the support of President Teddy Roosevelt. And really the outreach, or the objectives of the Navy League are threefold, to educate, advocate, and support all things about the sea services, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard, and the Merchant Marines. And we extend that here in Central Florida, especially important here where we don't have a large Navy presence.
Is that the reason that it's so important to do it here in Central Florida?
Yeah, I think we have a large veteran population and a rich history of Navy support, going back into the 60s when the Navy had a large base. In fact, many recruits came through Naval Support Activity Orlando back in the day to become Navy sailors and such. But now today, what most people don't know is there's still a presence here in Central Florida with Naval Support Activity and the Naval Air Warfare Center Training Systems Division, where almost all the training for all the services around the world comes here from Central Florida. So it's important we support that.
Can you tell me some of the activities that the Navy League has?
Yeah, absolutely. So our events throughout the year, we are probably the biggest one is an every other month social that we do after the Navy has their acquisition forecast. And that really brings a lot of industry partners out to join together and learn about what the Navy's doing here, what the requirements are for the acquisition programs and how they can support those. In addition, we support the Sea Cadets, we support the junior ROTC and the high schools, and those are youth programs that are working on the seed corn for tomorrow's leadership and such. That includes STEM camps that we do in the summer as well. And then we'll run social and physical challenge events, things like a 5K, 10K run race, a Murph CrossFit challenge, and a pickleball tournament, all to generate revenue so that we can support those lines of effort that I mentioned.
And as far as the youth, what do you do to empower the youth in the area?
So the Sea Cadet program is sort of like the junior ROTC program, if folks are familiar with that. The young kids in high school that kind of work their way into knowledge and potentially going into the military from high school. The Sea Cadets is a Navy League sponsored program outside of the federal budget that kind of augments that in locations where they don't have a junior ROTC unit, and it starts in middle school. And so we'll get some participants as early as middle school that go all the way through high school, and in some cases they come back and they're adult volunteers as well. So again, trying to teach them about the sea services, teach them about opportunities in the military, but more importantly, just educating them on how to be a good citizen in the United States.
Very important now.
Absolutely.
It's very much needed as well. Does the Navy League do anything to help veterans and their families in need?
So generally speaking, we'll refer to other organizations that are specializing for those family needs and such. But a lot of it is just the camaraderie that we bring together from those in the sea services by pulling them together in that shared experience, whether it was a former service member that's part of that, former family member, or in some cases, kids that grew up in the Navy and are now adults doing their own thing in their own job, and they want to give back and be a part of the Navy family still. We kind of create that Navy family here in Central Florida. And
can you tell me a little bit about a research park with the Navy?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Central Florida Research Park, most people, or a lot of people don't know it exists. It's just south of the main campus of UCF on the east side of town, still in Orange County. And it's the 6th largest research park in the country. And so it was started back in the late 80s as an idea to start incubating companies and kind of bring things together. And the Navy was the first tenant in the research park, moving over from the old base at Baldwin Park, which is obviously now not a military base, but had a long history as such. And what has happened there is all the services now have a presence around their training and simulation kind of thing. So the devices, the flight simulators, the submarine simulators, the firefighting trainers, all those things are either acquired from here in Central Florida, or in some cases made here in Central Florida and then deployed around the world to do that training that our joint forces need.
So there is a collaboration between the different branches.
Absolutely. Everything there is, we like to say it's joint for all the right reasons.
Absolutely.
And the part that most people don't understand is there's north of $6 billion of contracts that come through the research park every year. And that has built this big industry that people call us the epicenter of modeling and simulation and training here in Central Florida.
And were you ever in command at Research Park? You want to tell me a little about that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know the answer to that one. So my active duty Navy career is what brought me here to Central Florida back in 2016. I came in as the executive officer of both Naval Support Activity, the base there in Research Park, as well as the Naval Air Warfare Center Training Systems Division, which is the acquisition arm, the arm that does all the training for the Navy. And I spent about 2.5 years in that position and then fleeted up, as we call it, to become the commanding officer. And I had that job for about 2.5 years. That led me to my retirement date in July of 2021. And then we love Central Florida so much, we decided to stay, and we continue to be active in the community as a result of that.
Well, Captain Hill, thank you so much for letting me interview you. And thank you for your service to our nation and continuing to serve our nation. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Fred.
You're welcome. It is good to know that there are organizations like the Central Florida Navy League that are committed to uplifting the morale of sea service members and their families. The Central Florida Navy League also is making a difference in the lives of the youth through education. Supporting Sea Cadets is one of the many initiatives to educate the youth in Central Florida about the Sea Service's mission. When we come back, we'll hear from Sea Cadet about how the support from the Navy League is benefiting young people in Central Florida and how being a Sea Cadet has impacted him as an individual.